Well, everybody, no matter who they are, whether they're young or old, strong or weak, fit or, uncoordinated, an athlete or whatever, the one thing everybody ends up living with is their health, their body, their mind. If you feel good inside of yourself, if your body works, if you have the energy you have when you're 60 or 70 that when you had when you were 15, then more or less life goes on smoothly. Once you start losing that, then those things which were easy and comfortable and fun to do when you were younger, if you keep that when you get to be older, then life is really nice. And one of the finest things about Tai Chi, beside the fact that it's a very, matter of fact, I would say an exceedingly effective martial art, is the fact that it enables you to keep the same kind of health and spring and vitality when you're getting older that you had when you were young. For people who are involved in martial arts, as a martial art program, I've been doing martial arts like 25 years now. I started when I was a kid. And I've been through the judo, the karate, and the aikido, and all that kind of stuff. And one sheer fact of it, especially in karate and judo, is you get injured a lot. Your elbows, your knees, your back, this and that. Well, that's fine when you're in your teens and your 20s, and maybe even up to your early 30s. But then your body starts paying for it. And those injuries really start becoming something. Tai Chi has the ability to cure those injuries and get rid of them for you. And that's a pretty big thing. I think that's not to be taken lightly at all. So the capacity a person has, if they cannot maintain into old age, it was kind of like, well, I was rich once and now I'm a pauper. And that's really nice and all that, but the idea is to keep it going. Now, for people who do, let's say, all kinds of martial arts, in China, where there's like more martial art practitioners than the rest of the world combined, it's exceedingly common once people start hitting 30 or 35, regardless of what else they've done, if they want to keep it up, then what happens is they start taking up Tai Chi because that enables them to keep up their other martial arts.
Would we consider Tai Chi an internal style of martial art?
If you're doing classic Tai Chi, yes, it is an internal style. Some of the modern variations on it, I don't think it would even be realistic to call it internal or martial arts for that matter. It's something,
Now, what you're telling us is Tai Chi to the general populace would be what we've seen when we see, say, television pictures from Red China of people doing a slow, methodic exercise, and usually outdoors. And I've heard it described as the national exercise, something that's done every morning all around cities.
By about 100 million people, give or take, about 10% of the population. Yeah, it is that, and it is also that at its lowest level, it's that.
At its highest level.
At its highest level, now you're starting to talk about the subject of meditation. You are starting to talk about the mind, the body, and other things really starting to come together.
These things have always been interrelated. How you bring all this together for a person in the scenario of teaching, how would we approach that? What would, say, I'm meeting you now, I want to study Tai Chi with you. What would be one of the first things I'll have to do?
Well, point number one is I don't live in New York City. I grew up in New York City. I have taught in New York City, but I live out west now. I just come here for periodic workshops, just like I do in a lot of other places in the world. But the first thing you want to do is that you want to find a good teacher, because Tai Chi is an extremely subtle and complex thing, and literally a few months with a good teacher is worth years with a bad one. So you should be a little bit discriminating. The second thing is that a person wants to more or less find a teacher. If they find someone who at least has some competence in the subject, find someone they're comfortable with. Otherwise, they'll literally will spend half of their time just getting into all sorts of personality clashes with a teacher, which is a great way of wasting a lot of your life.
You're echoing many of the same things which I tell people when they ask me, where should I study a martial art? What martial art should I study? Yeah. That's exactly what I tell them. Find the place and the teacher that you can grow with and be a part of.
That's a fair comment. Now, if you're talking about Tai Chi specifically, a few things. First of all is that, like you were saying, Tai Chi is slow. Well, the Yang style and the Wu style are done slow. The Chen style does a lot, so that's very, very fast. Okay, so slow or fast is not what determines Tai Chi. In terms of developing a person's health, then it is the soft aspect of Tai Chi which develops a person's health, that heals their injuries, that makes them healthy. And it is the hard aspect of Tai Chi where they develop power. Okay, now, for most people, no matter who you are, you have power, you don't have power, that's a very relative statement. I mean, powerful compared to who? Compared to King Kong or compared to your 4-year-old child? That's a very relative statement. But the ability to heal your body and to have your body stay soft and supple and disease-free and your mind fairly clear, that comes from the soft aspect of Tai Chi. So I would say that if they're looking for someone, find someone who is both soft and strong. And that's already a good indication.
In the basic Tai Chi form, 24 movement form we talked about.
Yeah.
Do those movements include sort of exercising every muscle in the body?
Yeah, yeah. All Tai Chi training, if it's done properly, exercises every muscle in the body, especially the small muscles. The movements are done in such a way that you get internal pulling and stretchings and pressures, which cause all the muscles in the body to be used. It also causes all the organs of the body to be used. It also causes, if the Tai Chi is of a relatively high class, for the spine to elongate, for the pressure that's on most people's spine and vertebrae to be released, which is why they go to chiropractors and doctors and all those type of things. It also radically changes the nervous system. And that ability to radically change, calm, and literally overhaul and change the actual strength of the nervous system is probably what makes Tai Chi as a stress management technique just par excellence, for want of a better word. Now you have places like Taiwan, Taipei, which is a major export center, right? A major business center. Hong Kong, which is as fast as New York City is. You have Tokyo, which is as fast, if not faster, than New York City as Singapore. Tai Chi is really going big there. It's an interesting point. The Tai Chi for health, not the martial arts side of it. At the biggest place that's booming in the world today is in Tokyo, is in Japan. Because the Japanese, they're rich and they want to get a lot richer and they want to be more successful, and they are coming to realize that Tai Chi enables them to do that. Because if you can't take stress, stress will destroy you. I mean, forget it, this is martial arts. Your chances of being mugged are about 1 in a few million. Your chances of being stressed out and being absolutely incapacitated in today's modern society are not bad at all.
Could you tell us a little bit about Qigong now?
Okay, Qigong is a generic term. Before the communists took over in China, before the 49 revolution, the whole major shift that, let's say, has occurred in this past century, the term Qigong wasn't used that much in China, but the word Qi means energy. Specifically in terms, Qi means life energy when it's applied to human beings. Okay? Qi means life energy, and Gong means power or development. So Qigong means anything which will develop a person's life energy, their vital energy, their oomph, their juice, their capacity to do things, their youthfulness, their vigor, and even further to where you start developing powers, that are exceptional, like the things you talk about in yoga and things like that. And that's what Qigong is about. Now in Qigong, there are two major types of Qigong, without going into finite detail, but big broad strokes, like saying there's karate and there's judo. Okay, for people like using that bigger wrestling and a boxing type of an art. One kind is going to work a lot with breathing techniques. They're going to be using a lot of breath and a lot of visualization. Breath and visualization, where they actually use the air. They actually use breath. Those are one major category. The other major category of what you have in Qigong techniques are ones where you work purely with energy. You don't use breath, you don't use any intermediary except the mind. In both cases, usually the energy in the body has to become coordinated with the movement of the body, because the body in Chinese stuff, because the body is not static, it is ever changing, it is ever moving, it is ever, just going to changes. It's changing from this to this to that to that to that to that. And so Qigong has to have a way of enabling a person's energy to be able to change from one thing to another in a healthy, uniform fashion. Now, a lot of Tai Chi is different from Qigong. Because it's what they call Neigong, because Qigong techniques usually, another simple classification, two big broad ones. Another basic category is this. You have in Chinese terms what they call Neigong and Qigong. Neigong develops the whole system at one time. Everything in your body at one time, your mind, your body, everything gets done at one time. Qigong techniques develop some specific breathing technique or some specific part of your body or some specific aspect of your mind, but it's very user specific. It's used for something specifically, a certain type of breath. That breath will be done specifically. We're supposed to affect a certain type of your body. Like difference is that, for example, in internal martial arts, you don't practice any one part of your elbow, your hand. You practice everything, and the whole body comes into whatever part of your body you're using. Where in many external or kung fu styles, even karate, you'll have iron palm where you practice your palm, or a person will practice hours with their elbow or with their knee or with their foot or with their head or with something. So you have the specific and you have the stuff that develops the whole system in general. There are thousands of Qigong techniques because it's a generic term. It's like saying automobile. It doesn't say four-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, regular. It doesn't say what kind of car. It doesn't say where it's made. It doesn't say what kind of body. It doesn't say what kind of... All it says is automobile. Okay, so Qigong's a generic term like that.